YouTube family. How are you? Welcome back for another quick look at the type of clinical information that I like to put here on the page. You know, it's always occurred to me that I needed to come up with some kind of a chart that shows in a little bit more detail some of the restorative options that we have. Now, when I say restorative options, I mean things like crowns, bridges, inlays, onlays. These are just words, but I like to explain to people that they actually have greater meaning. They're not all the same, and if you just look at it with me just a little bit, I'm going to break some of it down for you. The first thing I like to do when a patient comes in and they have a tooth that I need to look at, or they have something going on that they may not even know existed, the first thing I like to do is kind of get to know the patient. I need to know certain things. What are they drinking? How often are they drinking it? Do they grind at night? Are they bruxing? Are they clenching during the daytime? How often are they brushing? How often are they flossing? These are the things I put together because I need to know what is the wear, what are their expectations for their teeth throughout the daytime, right? So some patients grind. Some people eat things that are way too strong for their teeth, chewing on ice, maybe using their teeth to strip meat off of bones. These are things that, you know, you got to be careful about what you're doing out there, especially as you get older. You get older, guess what? Your teeth get older too, and the limitations, well, they need to be some guarded decisions that you make with what you do with your mouth. That said, at times I will sometimes look into the mouth and say, hey, look, as opposed to doing a simple filling, maybe we're going to do an inlay. Maybe we're going to do a crown. And that's what this chart has to do with right here. So this is a simple chart. Most people, when they think about doing treatment in the mouth, they think about doing either like a gold filling, a composite tooth-colored filling, or a silver amalgam filling that may have already been done sometime in the past, or maybe they got it done recently as they were, I don't know, in the Navy or, and got it done on a boat, and that's the material that they had, or maybe they're in a different country. The reason that these materials are so important is these materials that we all use in dentistry, and I say all of us people here on this beautiful planet, we all use the basic same materials. What's important about them is that they have to move with the tooth, right? So if your tooth moves to the left because you chew, it's got to go to the left. If your tooth moves to the right because you're drinking something cold and things expand and contract based off of hot and cold, then you need a filling or some material that does that. That's what the basic prerequisite is for most materials. So gold, it has the closest coefficient of expansion to the natural tooth structure. After that is followed by composites and silver. Also ceramics. These ceramic interfaces on the teeth have to be able to move on a microscopic level with the actual tooth structure, right? So the strength of the material is very important because as it's moving to the left and moving to the right on this microscopic level, we need to make sure that it's strong enough that not only will it move, but it won't break. It's got to be able to withstand the forces that are being applied to it in the mouth. The healthy forces, right? So we're going to talk about that a little bit right here. So basically, a good metric for us to get started with, and if you look in the center, this middle column I have it here is on porcelains, okay? The basic chewing strength of in the mouth is usually around somewhere between 60 all the way up to 100 megapascals. If you're eating anything from cereal all the way up to like an apple or something like that, any kind of like uncooked root like a potato or raw potato or a carrot, we need to make sure that the fracture strength is at least as close to 100 when we are forming and making a porcelain crown that fuses with a metal kind of lining on the inside. This is what was a tried and true through the 80s through the 90s. We're going to get into some more of the newer materials, but this is the basic metric of where it all starts. You see this, the fracture toughness is a little bit less than 1, okay? The flexure strength is a little bit less than or equal to 100 megapascals. Now that's stronger than a composite. A composite filling, they're so sensitive to chewing and how large the filling is. They don't even come close to this 100 megapascal, right? They might be somewhere around like 40 or maybe 50, right? So composites are great solutions if you're just right in the groove, but they move a lot. They move a lot. That interface between the filling and the tooth structure is very, very sensitive. And the larger that filling gets, the more likely you are to have internal fractures and cracking and discolorations that are a result of open margins. And these fillings can get leaky depending on how much pressure we're putting on them. Do we grind on that tooth? All right. Do we clench? Are we eating things we shouldn't, like biting down on ice, maybe chewing on plastic, chewing on metal? You'd be surprised what people have told me throughout the years that they use their teeth for. Peeling off bottle caps. God almighty. So there's many things I would recommend that you not chew on, but since people do, we need to make sure that we have something that's very strong. So this is the metric. Composite fillings, gold and silver, they're pretty tough. But if you go up to just a porcelain crown, which is basically a metal coated or a porcelain coated, metal lined prosthetic tooth, we get about 100 megapascals. From there, we have other materials that we are using now. So Glidewell makes a whole series of products that I currently use. I love to use, and to some degree, it's the only products I really ever will use because they really are the best. Glidewell was the first laboratory to make zirconia crowns, and they set the bar high. Everybody does zirconia crowns now, and it's thanks to their research that every lab and every patient will benefit from that innovation. So this is basically a material that we use for inlay. It's a lucite glass ceramic. That means that it's resin filled with 80% ceramic. Okay, just so that you know, these composite fillings that everybody gets, these are mostly filled with quartz, like the rock quartz. That's what gives it its color, along with some other minerals and some dyes. But this is 80% ceramic resin. It is seriously tough stuff. And we use it not just to do a crown. You can do a portion of a crown. You can do a much larger crown that goes into a much bigger space. We can use it for partial coverage as opposed to just using it for full coverage. We'll get into full coverage. Full coverage is an example like this. It covers the entire tooth. We basically have to remove all the enamel. Partial coverage is we just look at that one area that needs maybe a stronger an area of weakness in the tooth, and we say we're going to replace it with a restorative knee. So that's when we come into camouflage. But you'll see here, its fracture toughness is greater than 100 megapascals. That means that this crown, if we made it out of camouflage, would be stronger to resistance from fracture than this traditional old crowns that were state of the art at one point in time. All right. So this material right here, I highly recommend if a patient has a very large filling. I can tell you that large amalgam that you're seeing right there, that's one that says silver, I would never ever do an amalgam filling that large. I wouldn't want to do a composite filling that large. Even that gold filling that's done on that tooth there to the left, that's bordering on pretty much being a little bit too big. For something of that size, I would always, for the most part, go to doing an inlay. Okay, an inlay is an example of what you're seeing right here. Those are examples of inlays. They go into the tooth. Okay, that would be something I would do. I would scan the tooth, and I would get all that anatomy. You see all that anatomy in there? I would return all that anatomy right back into the tooth with the restorative treatment that I made. And for multiple reasons. One, it has a greater flexure strength than a crown, which is going to have a greater flexure strength than a basic filling. I think also because I can computer design it, I can guarantee the fit and make sure that this is a solid state, not a liquid state, right? So this goes in like a punny, and you have to dry it. This is solid state. You put it in after it's been made and fabricated on the computer. It glides in, we cement it in. So this level of bonding is going to just be much, much stronger, and it's much more resistant and to biting forces, and fracturing is decreased. Okay, anything outside of that, now we might want to go with something that has a more cosmetic look. It's hard for you to see it here, but this is obsidian. Okay, this is a high strength glass ceramic. Okay, this is as close to porcelain as you can get as far as its looks. Okay, anything that's a disilicate, a lithium disilicate, these things are very beautiful. That glass ceramic creates all these different layers that the light will reflect off of and won't just be absorbed into. Okay, the light reflecting and bouncing back at your eye is what gives things that translucency. It gives it that shiny look that people like with their front teeth so much. You don't want your teeth to look dull and matte. What you want them to look like is like they're made out of layers, real organic layers. And Obsidian, it's just amazing what it can do. Now, look at this here. The flexure strength. It's a very strong substance. It's nearly 200 megapascals stronger than camouflage, which is used for inlays. It's 3 times as strong as a porcelain crown, and it's beyond anything as far as structure can go and strength can go compared to a composite gold or even a silver filling. This is something that I usually will, This is something I will usually only use when it comes to doing veneers. I wouldn't necessarily do a molar with Obsidian, but you could. I personally wouldn't, and I'm going to tell you why. Because there are a lot of patients out there who grind, and when you grind your teeth, you can be exerting anywhere between 800, maybe somewhere between 5 to 800 megapascals of force. If you grind your teeth, that is a real pathological interaction with your own teeth. So in that case, what I'm looking to do is create a situation where you won't have to worry about, are you biting too hard? Are you clenching too hard? I'm having a real technical issue here. You won't have to worry if you're biting too hard or clenching too hard. And that's where these Brugsier aesthetics come in. This is top of the line strength with, I think, state-of-the-art quality as far as being able to create the illusion of natural tooth structure. Brugsier aesthetic now is a zirconia that we use for front teeth, and Brugsier now is a material that we use for back teeth. You can see the flexure strength difference between the two. Brugsier aesthetic has a megapascal strengthness of about 500 plus. Flexure strength for the Brugsier now is about 800 plus. So on molars, if people grind and clench, I will say, look, we're going to do a Brugsier zirconia crown. It's a tetragonal zirconia. It's going to withstand all that bite force. You are not going to crack this thing in half. Now, believe me, there's no amount of dental work that I can do that you can't destroy. But if you follow the basic guidelines of things like wearing a night guard, wearing your day guard, not chewing anything that's harder than an uncooked carrot, potato, or apple, then you're going to preserve your dental work for a long time. For my individuals, let's say they have too much contact with their front teeth, and we like to have a little bit of space on our front teeth, just a little bit, half a millimeter, maybe a millimeter, not more than that. I'll recommend for individuals who grind heavily, I'll say, look, I'm not doing Obsidian if you grind your teeth. It's not recommended. I mean, there's a lot of patients who do, but I would say if we are going to use something as lustrous as Obsidian, then I would recommend that we want to maybe do Invisalign. We want to do something so that to disclude your front teeth from one canine to the next, the sexy 6, those front 6 teeth need to have a little bit of space, especially if you grind. But if they're habitual grinders, I will always put them in Brugsier aesthetics, just so that I know that it has the enough flexure strength to resist breaking, fractures, cracks, or what ultimately would be them having to come back into my chair, me having to redo their work, okay? So this is just a small catalog. I want to put this together because I never have time to explain this to all my patients. But when I make a treatment plan, I say, hey, look, for this molar, we're going to do a Brugsier now crown. We're going to do a zirconia crown. Or someone comes in and they say, I want veneers. I would say, well, I don't know. Have you been wearing your night guard? Okay, do you wear your retainer? Your teeth aren't perfectly aligned, so there may be some difficulty there. I may say, look, for this particular crown, why don't we do a aesthetic zirconia? In the future, we can plan to do something that's more cosmetic, like Obsidian. But there'll be other factors I want to take into consideration. And I'll say some of those considerations are expensive, right? Some of them are more of habits and patterns that you need to develop, so I know that you're taking care of your work. I'm invested in their dental work, my patients' dental work, as much as they are. That's why I'm still in the office doing this video. Everybody's gone home. Nobody's thinking about dentistry, but I am. I'm still here, and I care so much about what I do. My craftsmanship, hey, look, a lot of people say they aren't their job. I feel like I am, right? I'm a dentist in my heart, and even when I'm just, walking around Joe Schmo, getting a cup of coffee, I'm still looking at people's teeth. I'm still thinking about how I can make Monday through Friday as smooth as possible for myself and for my patient, as well as the staff who I work with. And then there's also considerations where patients will come and say, hey, I need a composite filling. And I'll say, you know what? I know you do. You need a filling done for sure. But hey, you grind your teeth, or you have very heavy occlusion. Maybe it would be better for us to do an inlay with a more dense, solid state material as opposed to a liquid state material, which we have to put in and pack in and dry and light, and put in and pack in and dry and light, and then possibly you coming back in another 2 or 3 years with another fracture in a filling that I just did for you 2 years prior. So there's all kinds of different solutions that we like to that dentists like to offer. These are some of the considerations that I have, and I just like to share them with you. I appreciate your time for listening. Have a wonderful day.